Good evening and Hare Krishna to everyone. Welcome to this evening Srimad Bhagavatam class, live stream from home. So Hare Krishna to all of you viewers online, Mayapur TV and its constantly YouTube. Hope you can hear me loud and clear. This evening we're going to be reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 6. There are 40 texts to this chapter, and it's divided in 2 days, so today and tomorrow. So I'll try to cover 20 texts today. So we'll just start off with a little bit of Jai Radha Madhav and then continue from there. So Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Vrajjanarandana Yashodanandana Vrajjanarandana Yamuna Tira Vanichari Yamuna Tira Vanichari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivacharya Asutra Satya Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Ave Channaravindra Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Anand Koti Vaishnavarind Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Kaur Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktivedanta Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gop Gopinath Sham Kun Radha Kun गिर गोवर्धन की जय वृंदावन धाम की जय मथुरा धाम की जय नवदीप धाम की जय श्री जगन्नाथ स्वामी की जय यमुना माई की जय श्रीमती तुलसी देवी की जय सामवेद भक्त वृंद की जय Nitai Gaur Premanandi, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srila Gurudev ki jai. नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्ण प्रस्ताय भूतले श्रीमते वीर कृष्ण गोस्वामी निधि नामने नमो हमसा निकाशया प्रभुपदा प्रियाते शुद्ध शुद्धि निष्ठा वैम तस्य वाक्यानुवादिने. So good evening to those of us who have joined. Welcome to this evening's live streaming from home, Srimad Bhagavatam class, Canto 3, Chapter 6. So let me put my mridanga away and I'll be with you in just a sec. Okay, so Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Naruttamam Devam Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye Nasta Priyashu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nandagopa Kumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha. Okay, so we are at this point in the Srimad Bhagavatam where Vidur meets Rishi Maitreya. Now, who is Rishi Maitreya? Rishi Maitreya is a disciple of the father of Vyasadeva. So Parashar, Sage Parashar. So Sage Parashar was the father of Vyasadeva, and Rishi Maitreya is the disciple of the Sage Parashar. So he's a highly elevated soul. So what happens is, as you know, Vidur, if you had been following the previous classes, Vidur was on pilgrimage. Vidur is the incarnation of Yamraj. So he was the advisor of he's like a minister, the advisor of Dhritarashtra during the Mahabharata, right? So so what had happened was Duryodhan had insulted Vidur while he was trying to give some good advice to Dhritarashtra. To say that, you know, let's not have this Kurukshetra battle, let's not have this war, and surrender to Krishna, and, you know, that is dharma. So he was trying to explain dharma. As you know, Yamraj is the Lord of Dharma, right? So he knows everything about dharma, which is duty, the difference between right and wrong. He is the giver of justice. So he was trying to impart all this knowledge to Dhritarashtra, and Duryodhan was listening on the side, and he was getting angrier and angrier by the second, because Vidur not appeared, but definitely was on Lord Krishna's side, and therefore the Pandavas' side. So in that regard, he insulted Vidur by saying, well, you are the son of a dasi, which is a maidservant, and so you are not even the son of the queen. And so who would want to keep such a, you know, person like that in the kingdom, let alone be a minister? So like the insults that Duryodhan had given to Vidur was beyond forbearance, like he couldn't even take it. So it hit Vidur deep in the heart, the kind of insult. So Vidur took that as an impetus, actually. He took it as a blessing to for humility, and he took off on pilgrimage. So he left everything behind, his entire kingdom, because he was actually the brother of the Dhritarashtra. So he had his, you know, that was his kingdom also. He left everything behind and he went on pilgrimage. So while he was on pilgrimage, a lot of things happened. The Kurukshetra battle happened, and Lord Krishna, obviously he was with Pandavas and they won the battle. And then a lot of pastimes happened where Lord Krishna was with his queens and, pastimes in Dwarka. And then his sons had a party. His sons, grandsons, his entire, uh, you know, the whole Yadu dynasty, they had a party. And in that they got drunk, and then they had argument and fight, and then they started fighting with each other, and then they destroyed each other and they killed each other. So all of Krishna's dynasty, the Yadu dynasty, they always also died. So many things had happened. All this time Vidur was on pilgrimage, but he did have this information that these things had happened. So along the way he meets Uddhav. So this is just a background of where we are at. So he meets Uddhav, who's a childhood friend and cousin of Lord Krishna, who's partaken in all of his pastimes since childhood. So he asks Uddhav, how's the kingdom and how's Krishna, how's my family, what's happening? Even though he knows that they are no more, even though he knows that Krishna is no more, because Krishna had also decided to leave this planet. So Uddhav, after a stunned silence, realized that psychologically Vidur was, affected by the happenings, the Kurukshetra battle, the killings, and the disappearance of the Yadu dynasty, and all these, bad omens and, unfortunate incidents, traumatic, in fact. So after a stunned silence, Uddhav replies in response, and he gives the entire Lord Krishna's pastimes. So, and then he comes to the point where, he approaches Lord Krishna, Uddhav, near the banks of Saraswati River, where Lord Krishna finally meditates to leave this planet. And that's when Uddhav meets Lord Krishna meditating with his legs folded and sitting in a lotus position and meditating to, arranging to immediately leave. So that's when Uddhav approaches Krishna, and Krishna advises him to go to Badrikashram. But before going to Badrikashram, Krishna gives him a lot of lectures and instructions. And while he's giving these instructions to Uddhav, we are coming to this point, sage Rishi Maitreya is also, by his own arrangement, arrives at that same spot where Lord Krishna is giving instructions to Uddhav. So while Uddhav is, Lord Krishna actually gives entire focus to Uddhav with his instructions on how to be, how to rule the kingdom, what to do, and he gives a lot of knowledge. And Said Maitreya, who happens to be obviously the disciple of Parashar, who is the father of Srila Vyasadeva, is also a highly elevated soul. He listens. He's also a great soul. He's a rishi. So he partakes and he intakes all of that knowledge that Lord Krishna is giving to Uddhav. So then now the scene has changed and Lord Krishna has left. Uddhav has gone back to Badrikashram after talking to Vidur, right? So Vidur talks to Uddhav and gets all the information, and then Uddhav leaves for Badrikashram, and then now Vidur meets Sage Maitreya. So once he meets Sage Maitreya, then he asks this question. So we are on this chapter, and this chapter is actually called, let me just backtrack a little bit. Please excuse me, I'm on my iPad, so so it's a little hard to turn the pages. So the title of this chapter is Creation of the Universal Form. So he asks these questions, Vidur asked these questions to Sage Maitreya. So I'm just going to read the first translation, Canto 3.6, text 1. Just the translation. The Rishi Maitreya said, "The Lord thus heard about the suspension of the progressive creative functions of the universe due to the non-combination of his potencies such as the Mahatattva." So Rishi Maitreya is explaining to Vidur about the creation of this universe. So this chapter is sort of technical. There is not much pastimes behind it as such of Lord Krishna while he was down here, but more rather the discussion of his energies and planetary systems and his expansions, plenary portions. So we will be discussing a lot about of those creation of the universal form and the Virat Roop of Lord Krishna. So Maitreya is explaining all these universal secrets, the creation to Vidur, and Vidur is listening. So Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada writes in his purport, there is nothing wanting in the creation of the Lord. All the potencies are there in a dormant state. But unless they are combined by the will of the Lord, nothing can progress. So what he is saying here is that all these energies are in different types of energies, and however they are combined will actually end up with a result or a process. So we are a combination of the Lord's energies, basically. This planet is a combination of the Lord's energies. So however they are combined, it's done by the will of Lord Krishna. That's the result, and that's the progress. So the suspended progressive work of creation can only be revived by the direction of the Lord. So whatever is annihilated can only be reactivated or brought to life by Lord Krishna. Annihilated obviously means destroyed. So whatever is destroyed brings back to life by the will of Lord Krishna. So the Supreme Powerful Lord then simultaneously entered into 23 elements. Let me grab my glasses for just a second. I'll repeat that. The Supreme Powerful Lord then simultaneously entered into the 23 elements with the goddess Kali. The goddess Kali is his external energy, who alone amalgamates all the different elements. So goddess Kali is basically responsible for the material energies. She is the material energy, which is the external potency, external energy of Lord Krishna, the supreme power. So the ingredients of the matter, they are counted as 23. So if you want to know how many different kinds of matter they are 23. And what they are, I'll just read it off. One is false ego, sound, touch, form, taste, smell, earth, water, fire, air, sky, which is the ether, eyes, nose, tongue, skin, hand, leg, the evacuation organs, the genitals, the speech, and mind. So all are combined together by the influence of time and then again dissolved in the course of time. Time, therefore, is the energy of the Lord and acts in its own way by the direction of the Lord. So this energy is called Kali. So if you want to know the definition of Kali, it's here. This energy of Kali, this energy of Lord is called Kali, and is represented by the dark, destructive goddess. So she's dark and she's destructive, and she's a goddess, and she is generally worshipped by persons influenced by the mode of darkness or the mode of ignorance. In other words, they are not in the mode of goodness. So you might meet a lot of these people along the way who are worshippers of Kali, and they recite these mantras about this goddess. I mean, even I think I know one that I learned when I was growing up in Fiji. I think Jayanti, Mangla Kali, Bhadra Kali, Kapalini. So, you know, they are worshippers of Kali, but they are in this mode of ignorance and mode of passion. It's not mode of goodness. And she is known as, from the purport here, she is the goddess of destruction, and she is dark. So, and she's under the mode of darkness and ignorance, basically material creation. So the energy which acts as material nature in the combination of the 23 ingredients which we just read about is not the final source. It's not the final source of creation. The Lord enters into the elements. The Lord enters into these elements and applies his energy called Kali. In other Vedic scriptures, the same principle is accepted. In the Brahma Samhita, it is stated, Ekopisau rachaitum jagadanda kotim yachaktirasti jagadanda chayayadanta Andantarasta Paramanuchayantarastam Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. This is recited by Lord Brahma himself, the translation of which is, I worship the primeval Lord Govinda, who is the original personality of Godhead. By his plenary expansion, Mahavishnu, he enters into the material nature and then into each and every universe as Garbhadai Vishnu and then as Kshirodakshai Vishnu into all elements, including every atom of matter. Such manifestations of cosmic creation are innumerable, both in the universes and the individual atoms. So this is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita also. Lord Krishna says, "Oh Arjun, there is no necessity of you knowing my innumerable energies which act in various ways," which is quite true. We will not be able to fathom or understand all of the material energies, nor is there a need for us to know about these energies anyway. What we do need to know is who is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and who do we worship, and who we bow down to, and who we end up loving. Because Lord Krishna, who is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he doesn't really need anything. He's really very self-sufficient. He owns everything. He is everything. So all he needs is our bhakti, our love, and he reciprocates in kind. So then there is no room for us to know about all these nitty-gritties about the material energies, where things come from and how things are made and all those things. So he's telling Arjun there is no need to know about his innumerable energies. He says, I enter into the material creation by my partial plenary expansions as Paramatma or Super Soul, who is within us also, Paramatma, in all the universes and all the elements thereof, and thus the work of creation goes on. The wonderful activities of this material nature are due to Lord Krishna, and thus he is the final cause, or the ultimate cause of all causes. Ishvara Parama Krishna Sachidananda Vigraha Anadiradi Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam, cause of all causes. So if you want to know who's behind everything that happens, the main root cause, that's Lord Krishna, Lord Govinda. So it says here, thus when the God had entered into the elements by his energy, all the living entities were enlivened into different activities, just as one is engaged in his work after awakening from sleep. So Lord Krishna is responsible for waking us up and then activating us. So he activates us into action with his energies. Not just us, all the living entities, planetary systems, planets, everything. So I won't have time to read all the purports, but I'll try to read up till text 20. It is quite interesting, but it's quite detailed and about the universal creation. So here it says, when the 23 principal elements were set in action by the will of Supreme, the gigantic universal form or the Vishwarupa body of the Lord came into existence. So if you want to know when Lord Krishna displays his Virat form, this is when he does it. This is at the time of creation, when the 23 elements that we just discussed are set in action. This gigantic universal form of Vishwarupa comes into existence. Vishwarupa is the Virat Rup. Some of us know it as Virat Rup. Others know it as the gigantic universal form of the Lord, which is very much appreciated by the impersonalists, not an internal form of the Lord. It is manifested by the Lord after ingredients of the material creation. Lord Krishna exhibited this Virat Rup to Arjun just to convince him, convince the impersonalists that he is the original personality of Godhead. Krishna exhibited the Virat Rup is not that Krishna was exhibited by the Virat Rup. He exhibited Virat Rup, not the Virat Rup exhibiting him. So the Virat Rup is not there for the eternal form of the Lord. The eternal form of the Lord is Lord Krishna, form of Lord Shyamasundar is right behind me in the DT format, in the DT form today. I will try to give you a darshan, but at the moment we are set up, so I don't want to move the camera a little bit. But that's rather Shyamasundar behind me, or actually to my right, left, to my left. But that's the eternal form of Lord Shyamasundar, Lord Krishna. It's not the Virat Rup. So those who want to worship or practice bhakti yoga, want to love Krishna, they will not worship Virat. They will worship Lord Krishna in his sweetest form, which is Shyam Sundar, or Govinda, or Lord Krishna, or Gopinath. So these are some very sweet forms of Lord Krishna, and those who love Krishna will worship Krishna in that form. Srila Prabhupada explains, the Archa Vigraha, or the worshipable deity in the temple, is a similar manifestation of the Lord for the neophytes. But in spite of their material touch, such forms of the Lord as the Virat and Archa are non-different from this eternal form of Lord Krishna. So the deities behind me, according to Srila Prabhupada, is non-different from Krishna himself. The deities in the temple also are non-different from Lord Krishna himself. So this we are on which text are we? We are on text 5. As the Lord in his plenary portion entered into the elements of the universal creation, they transformed into the gigantic form in which all the planetary systems and all movable and immovable creations rest. Then after that, the gigantic Virat Purush, he is also known as another name, which is Hiranyamaya. Hiranyamaya, he lived for 1,000 celestial years on the water of the universe. So the universe has this water, and he lives there on the water, and all living entities lay within him, inside him. Lies all living entities inside the universal form, which is Hiranyamaya, and for 1,000 years. So after that, let's read. The total energy of the Mahatattva in the form of gigantic Virat Roop divided himself into the consciousness of living entities, life of the activity, self-identifications, which are subdivided into 1, 10, and 3 respectively. Let me just backtrack over here and just do a little bit further explanation in the purport, because it would probably sound a little bit confusing or complicated, could be. So Srila Prabhupada really explains it very, very easily and very simply. He says, after the Lord entered each and every universe as Garbhodakshai Vishnu, half of the universe was filled with water. Actually, that was his own perspiration of Garbhodakshai Vishnu. He enters in each and every universe. So there are millions and millions of universe that he creates. And in each universe, he enters as Garbhodakshai Vishnu. Each universe has its own Garbhodakshai Vishnu. And half of the universe is filled with water. And the cosmic manifestation of the planetary system, outer space, etc., which are visible to us, is only 1/2 complete of the universe. Before the manifestation takes place and after the entrance of Vishnu, within the universe, there is a period of 1,000 celestial years. All the living entities are injected within the womb of the Mahatattva, are divided in all universes with the incarnation of Garbhodaya Vishnu. And all of them lie down with the Lord until Brahma is born. So Brahma is the first living being within the universe, and from him all other demigods and living creatures are born. So Manu is the original father of mankind. And therefore, in Sanskrit, mankind is called Manushya. So humanity in different bodily qualities is distributed throughout various planetary systems. So we know from the information in the Srimad Bhagavatam and the Bhagavad Gita that there are 400,000 varieties of human life. So I was wondering one day myself, I said 400,000 varieties of human life. I mean, on this planet, they are like, different skin colors. So let's say they are the blacks, they're browns, they're whites, they're yellows. They're different shades, they are from different countries, but altogether, I was trying to think, 400,000, is it really, how could we possibly count the 400,000 types of human life? So here then the question is answered. It says that humanity in different bodily qualities is distributed throughout various planetary systems. So there could be different kinds of humans from what I'm reading here through different planetary systems. Like for example, it is said that on the planet Sun, They are they are living entities, obviously human form of some type, which are compatible with the sun. So their bodies are like fire, so extremely hot but resistant to the sun. So I'm just thinking that the um, the bodily forms, the human forms, 400,000 probably makes sense because they're different forms all throughout the universe. So then we continue. Consciousness is the sign of the living entity or the soul in the form of consciousness. It's called Jnana Shakti. The total consciousness is that of the gigantic Virat Rupa, and the same consciousness is exhibited in individual persons. The activity of consciousness is performed through the air of life, which is of 10 divisions. The airs of life are called prana, apana, uddhana, vyana, and samana, and are also differently qualified as Nag, Kurma, Krikara, Devadatta, and Dhanatya. The consciousness of the soul becomes polluted by material atmosphere, and thus various activities are exhibited in the false ego of bodily identification. So if you are wondering why someone does this and certain activity, why this person is involved in this certain activity, whereas this person is involved in, say, bhakti, or is on the altar, or just different, it is because of the pollution of the material atmosphere that this particular soul has gone through. So, and this particular soul would be associating with different modes of nature, and different modes of nature means different material energies. So for example, if I am associating with a basketball player or a rugby player, let's say a rugby player, because in Fiji they play a rugby a lot. Actually, recently I had gone to buy some furniture and I met some fellow Fijians from my country. They're like native Fijians, not Indian Fijians, but native Fijians, and all they could talk about was rugby, footy. They're very sporty people and they're muscular. But because I'm from that country, I started talking to them. I started talking footy as well and rugby as well, and I started naming all the rugby players. So what I'm saying is, then at that time I wasn't worried about the altar behind me, or Radha Shyam Sundar behind me, or Radha Gopinath and the pujari work, the service that I do sometimes. No, none of that was there. So our consciousness becomes influenced by the kind of people we associate with. So, so that's why we are in different modes of nature. That is called different modes of nature. So for a minute there, I became like a native Fijian. So then, obviously, when I come to the temple and I'm associating with the pujaris, then my language changes, and I start speaking the pujari language. Right now, we are discussing the Srimad Bhagavatam. So this is the name. So, in other words, the whole bottom line, the solution is that we must always be vigilant on who we associate, because our activities are defined by our associations. So if we associate with a rugby player, we'll naturally want to play rugby. If we associate with a devotee, naturally we will want to be devoted. And that's really where we want to go. We want to be devoted to Lord Krishna, and we want to be good people. We want to be in the mode of goodness. We don't want to be in the mode of darkness or mode of ignorance. We don't want to be worshipping Kali, even though she is energy of the Lord. But we don't want to be in that mode of ignorance and darkness. We want to be in the mode of goodness. So we shall not discuss rugby, but we shall discuss Krishna, Lord Krishna. The nature of the person and the activities of the person is usually defined immediately as soon as they open their mouths. So, for example, if you meet a new person and as soon as they start discussing something, you know what kind of mode, nature this person is. If they start talking about biology or science, then you know, okay, this person is a scientist. So that's the mode of nature. Or if you meet a stranger and they're talking weird things like stealing, so you know this person is a thief. So you know the mode of But that person is, as soon as they open their mouth, or as soon as they start talking, they express. So it is a very, very good to know as soon as you know who to associate it with and who not to associate it. As soon as you know this person is talking about such and such, obviously that's when you choose, okay, do I want to associate with this person, or do I want to associate with the devotee who's talking about Lord Krishna and Lord Krishna's pastime. So this is a kind of a very important conclusion that we come to with the different types of souls, and how the material modes of nature are combined into the consciousness, because they're polluted by the material atmosphere. So we have to chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra in order to have the best of purification. So we continuously chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, which cleanses our hearts, and which cleanses our mode of nature, which improves our activities. We don't do nasty things, or things that are in the mode of ignorance or in mode of passion, but rather we do things in the mode of goodness, or even we transcend that and become spiritualized, and then we are in a transcendental mood which everybody loves and wants. So we'll just continue. The gigantic universal form of the Supreme Lord is the first incarnation and plenary portion of the super soul. So let me read that again, because if you want to know where the soul comes from, the super soul. The gigantic universal form of the Supreme Lord is the first incarnation and plenary portion of the super soul. He is the self of an unlimited number of living entities, and in him rests the aggregate creation, which thus flourishes. So the Supreme Lord expands himself in two ways. One, by personal plenary expansions, and separate minute expansions. The personal plenary expansions are Vishnu Tattvas, and the separated expansions are living entities, which is the Jiva Tattva. Since the living entities are very small, they are sometimes described as the marginal energy of the Lord. Why marginal energy? Because let's say that the Lord is spiritual, and the other side of living entities are material. But some of the living entities are known as marginal because we tend to be attracted to the material energies more, even though the nature of the soul is spiritual. So we're kind of hanging in between. Not we our nature is the soul's nature is spiritual, because it's part and parcel of the Lord. The Lord is spiritual. However, because we are mixing with the different material modes of nature, we are attracted to material energy. That is why we chant the Mahamantra, and we worship Lord Krishna, Lord Shamsundara, so that we are less and less attracted to the material energy and more attracted to the spiritual energy. That's why we are marginal. We are hanging in between no man's land, basically. It's a dangerous position to be with, because it's just like walking on a razor's edge. You can fall either way. It depends on who you associate with. So always associate with the spiritual person, then you will be attracted to the Lord. So that's why we are marginal, because we are neither here nor there. And it is always, we need to be vigilant all the time and chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, so that we are always attracted to the spiritual energy rather than the material. Okay, so continuing from there, the gigantic universal form is represented by 3, 10, and 1 sense. So 3, and then 10, and then 1. Sense, he is the body, the mind, and the senses. He is the dynamic force for all movements by 10 kinds of life energy, and he is the one heart where life energy is generated. So near our heart, that's the super soul. If you want to know where your super soul is, where your soul is and the super soul is, it's here. So if you touch your chest, your heart, this is where your soul is, and this is where Krishna is in the form of super soul. That's very easy. And we try to make the place of residence just like a temple, so that Lord Krishna can reside there with love. So that is why we chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Hopefully the temple where the super soul is residing next to your soul is nice and clean. So that is why Srila Prabhupada has asked us to undergo certain purificatory processes where we are purified. And it's a nice, comfortable place for Lord Krishna as a super soul to reside, as Paramatma. So let's continue. Let's see. There's quite a lot of technical information. Okay, so let me come to the 8 elements first. In the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 7, text 4 to 5, there are 8 elements: the earth, water, fire, air, sky, mind, intelligence, false ego. There are 8. And they are all products of the Lord's inferior energy, whereas the living entities who are seen to utilize the inferior energy originally belong to the superior energy, which is the internal potency of the Lord, which is what I was saying, is that we are really spiritualized. The 8 inferior energy work grossly and subtly, whereas the superior energy works as the central generating force. This is experienced in the human body. The gross elements, named the earth, etc., form the external gross body and are like a coat, whereas the subtle mind and false ego are like the inner clothing of the body. So the movements of the body are first generated from the heart, and all the activities of the body are made possible by the senses, powered by the kinds of air within us. So if you know within the body, how many airs, the prana, how many kinds? There are 10 kinds. The 10 kinds of air are described as follows. So this is kind of for those people who are interested. This is, Canto 3.6.9. You can read it further. I'll just read it very quickly. The 10 kinds of air are described as follows. The main air passing through the nose in breathing is called prana. So the air that we breathe in is prana. The air that passes through the rectum as evacuated bodily air is called apana. The air which adjusts the foodstuff within the stomach and sometimes sounds as belching is called samana. The air which passes through the throat and stoppage of which constitutes suffocation is called udana air. And the total air which circulates throughout the entire body is called vyana air. So subtle than these 5 airs are others also, that which facilitate opening of the eyes, etc., is called naga air. The air which increases appetite is called prakara air. The air which helps contraction is called kurma air. The air which helps relaxation by opening the mouth wide in yawning, it is called devadatta air. And the air which helps us sustenance is called dhananjana air. So all these airs are generated from the center of the heart, which is one only. This central energy is superior energy of the Lord, who is seated within the heart with the soul of the body, who acts under the guidance of the Lord. This is explained in the Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita chapter 15. We won't go through all of that. We don't have that much time. So we'll continue from there. So we'll continue from there to 3.6.10. The Supreme Lord is the super soul of all the demigods also. So he's the super soul of all the demigods also. Entrusted with the task of constructing the cosmic manifestation. Being thus prayed to by the demigods, he thought to himself and thus manifested gigantic form for their understanding. So, just to unpack that a little bit, Srila Prabhupada mentions in his purport, the impersonalists are captivated by the gigantic form of the universal, the form of the Supreme. They think that the control behind this gigantic manifestation is imagination, which is really weird. Intelligent persons, however, can estimate the value of the cause by observing the wonders of the effects. For example, the individual human body does not develop outside the womb of the mother independently, doesn't. But because the living entity is the soul, it's within the body. Without the living entity, a material body cannot automatically take shape or develop. When any material object displays development, it must understand that there is a spiritual soul within the manifestation. So the gigantic universe has developed gradually, just as the body of a child develops. Wow. Just as the body of a child develops, the conception that the transcendence enters within the universe is therefore logical. As the materials cannot find the soul and the supersoul within the heart, similarly, for the want of sufficient knowledge, they cannot see that the supreme soul is the cause of the universe. So it's the supreme soul which causes the gigantic form of the universe, the supreme. So um, they cannot see that the supreme soul is the cause of the universe. The Lord is therefore described in Vedic language as Asvan Manasha Gochara, beyond the of words. Actually, we cannot. That is true. We cannot comprehend. There is no way. There's no way. We don't have that kind of intelligence to be able to comprehend entire universes and different manifestations and creations. That is why Krishna tells earlier, as we discussed, he told Arjun, "Don't worry about knowing all these things. It's really not important. Anyway, it's beyond our conception." So, because we have a proof of knowledge, we don't know. But to know about a certain fraction of it, read the Srimad Bhagavatam, and it will give you some knowledge. This is the best way we can ever get through understanding the creation of the universe. So, one cannot perceive the transcendental name or form of the Lord by mental speculation. The mundane PhD is completely unable to speculate the supreme with their limited senses. So the PhDs or the doctors and scientists, they won't be able to speculate. Actually, the way that you can know Lord Krishna, Lord Sham, is just by worshipping, bhakti yoga. You worship, you love him, uh, you read about his pastimes, you associate with devotees who talk about Krishna, and really that is how you will know him, through devotional service. So whatever little service you are able to give to Krishna, that will actually open your eyes, and the knowledge will be there automatically. You will come to know about Lord Krishna through associating with devotees, not by mental speculation, not by theory, not at all. There needs to be bhakti, there needs to be love, there needs to be devotional service. Obviously, that all comes under the guidance of a spiritual master. Without a spiritual master, there's no way we can achieve any of those things. So, take shelter of a spiritual master, take shelter of Srila Prabhupada, read his books. It goes on further, Srila Prabhupada's purport, to say, the Lord can reveal himself only to a person who is submissive and who engages in his transcendental loving service, which is just what I've sort of said, is devotional service and love Krishna. I mean to say, a mother will know her child only because she looks after the child, so she'll know her child very well. Even in other relationships, you know a person by loving a person. There's no way you'll know a person just by mental speculation from a distance, or you read about it and say, okay, well, I read about Shymapriya Dasi, this is who she is. No, you would not know a person unless you are associating with that person. And I am talking about Lord Krishna, not me. You'll know Lord Krishna by devotional service to Krishna, by talking about him, by reading about his pastimes, uh, not by like a speculation. You have to be with people who know, with devotees who know Krishna, like Srila Prabhupada, like our gurus, acharyas, mentors. So that's you know about it through transcendental loving service. You know about Lord Krishna. So the demigods controlling the elements and ingredients of the universal affairs, they prayed to the Lord for guidance, and thus he manifested himself in his gigantic form as he did at the request of Arjuna. So this is Maitreya. He's explaining this to Vidur. Maitreya said, "You may now hear from me how the Lord separated himself into the diverse forms of the demigods after manifestation, after the gigantic universal form." So the demigods are separated parts and parcels of the Supreme Lord. We know that, right? As are all living entities. We are all parts and parcels. they're separated from the Lord. They're separated parts and parcels of the Supreme Lord. The only difference between the demigods and the ordinary living entity is that when the living entities are rich in pious acts of devotional service to the Lord, and when their desire is to lord it over material and vanished, they are promoted to the posts of demigods, who are entrusted by the Lord with executing the management of the universal affairs. So, continuing 3.6.12, we are almost reaching to text 20, not really, but close to it. Agni, or heat, separated from his mouth, and directors of the material affairs entered into their respective positions. By that energy, the living entity expresses himself in words. So the mouth of the gigantic universal form of the Lord is the source of power. The director of the fire element is the controlling deity, or the Adi. The speeches delivered are Adhyatma, or bodily functions, and the subject matter of the speeches is material productions, or Adibhuta principle. So when the palette of the gigantic form was separated, I'll read that again. When the palette of the gigantic form was separately manifested, Varun, the director of water in the planetary systems, entered therein. So then came the water. Entered therein, and thus the living entity has the facility to taste everything with his tongue. So they're kind of connected: the water, the tongue, the fire, the speech. Okay, so let's move on. And when the Lord's two nostrils separately manifested themselves, when the Lord's two nostrils separately manifested themselves, the dual Ashwini Kumars entered them in their proper positions. And because of this, the living entities can smell the aromas of everything. So this is a joke. If you happen to be sensitive to smells, we owe it to the dual Ashwini Kumars. They are the deities of the sense of smell. According to Srimad Bhagavatam here, it's something new for me when I've come across it today. I've read the Srimad Bhagavatam before, but I guess you need to read it again and again and again in order to remember everything. It's not possible. So I feel like I'm reading this for the first time. When the Lord's two nostrils separately manifested themselves, the dual Ashwini Kumars entered them in their proper positions. And because of this, the living entities can smell the aromas of everything. Okay, thereafter, the two eyes of the gigantic form of the Lord were separately manifested. So now the universal form is manifesting the eyes. It had manifested the nose, the mouth, and what was it before that? After the mouth was the tongue, right? That was Varun. So then the nostrils, and then the eyes. So when the two eyes were formed to it, the sun, which is the director of light, entered the lights, entered them with the partial representative of eyesight. So our eyesight is associated with the sun. And thus the living entities can have vision of forms. So we can see through the Lord, the sun, directing the deity directing the wind. So let me read that again. When there was a manifestation of skin separated from the gigantic form, Anil, the deity directing the wind, entered with partial touch, and thus the living entities can realize tactile knowledge. So that means that the skin of the gigantic form and the deity Anil, they are connected with the living entities' realization of knowledge, tactile knowledge. And going on to now 3.6.17, when the ears were formed of the gigantic universal form, so now we are in the ears, became manifested, all the controlling deities of directions entered into them with the hearing principles. by which all the living entities can hear and take advantage. Okay, so of sound, take advantage of. That's the best senses we have, because through sound, sound is connected through the ears, and the channel is connected to the heart, and the heart is where the soul is and the super soul is. That's where your realizations come from. That is why we are asked time and time and time again to hear the vibration of the holy names of the Lord. So when we chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, we should listen to religiously to the sound vibrations, because it enters through the ears. It enters through the ears and then the channel down to the heart. And oh dear, I've got about 15%. My phone is only 15% charged. Okay, so we're on camera. Hopefully it will last for another 10 minutes. So anyway, we are at 8:28 p.m. So we don't have to talk for long. I think we finish at 8:30 anyway. So as I was saying, the sound senses. When we chant, we hear the vibration of the Mahamantra. It goes through the channel, through the ear, to the heart. It purifies the heart, and that's where the soul is. And through there, we get purified, and we change the mode that we are in. We enter the mode of goodness, and then we become transcendental, which is beyond the mode of goodness. Actually, our job is to transcend all the three modes of nature. So you might have heard, like, somebody goes in coma, all the senses are shut down, but the only thing that's open is the ears, the sense of hearing. So that's actually the last to go also. Apparently, when the soul leaves the body, that's the last senses. Sometimes it's still there. They can still hear. That's what I've heard. I don't have personal experience, obviously, or maybe I had that experience, but in the last life. Anyway, that is the best of senses. That's the whole point I'm just trying to illustrate here. That even when we are unconscious, we can still hear. Even in our dreaming state, when we are asleep, if we hear the cat outside howling or the dog barking, we can hear even within our sleep. And that's when we wake up. And that's how we wake up. We have the alarm on because all of the senses are sleeping except for the hearing. So that's how we wake up. And through the sense of hearing, the alarm goes. Or somebody screams, or the dog barks, or something. If you are in Fiji, the dog barks a lot. So be prepared if you ever visit Fiji. There are lots of dogs outside. The reason being, they are very cheap in security. They are very cheap security guards. So saving money on security and alarms, they just keep a dog, a watchdog, and they bark all night. Anybody who passes through your house or outside your house will bark all night. I mean, we used to keep dogs too. So anyway, so the sense of hearing I'm talking about, and that's why it's really important, stressed over and over and over again, to hear the sounds of the holy name, because Lord Krishna has said that in Kali Yuga I might not be there in my personal form, original form, but I'm there in the form of sound. So he's actually mentioned it. He's there in the form of deities right behind me, and he's also there for Kali Yuga purposes in the sound vibration. So if we say Krishna, that's him. He's there. And as soon as we say Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, he is present in all his power, in all his glory, in all his opulence, within the spiritual sound, in the vibration, sound vibration. And he's given that to us as a boon, as a benediction, because we are in Kali Yuga, and we are in a most polluted state. And we do all kinds of abominable things, bad things that we are not supposed to do. And so it's because it's Kali Yuga, and that's the influence of Kali Yuga and material nature. It's at its strongest. So he's taken some pity on us. Say, okay, these poor conditioned souls who are always up to no good, or are being constantly polluted. Let me find a simple way of delivering them. So let me present them with myself in the form of sound. So that's why a sense of hearing is extremely important. Extremely important. Of course, if you don't have the sense of hearing, then the sense of sight is there. Then you just see the details. And obviously, through your mouth, you will utter the Mahamantra constantly. And why do we want to do that? Why do we want to purify ourselves? Why do we want to chant constantly? Why do we want to hear the names of Lord constantly? Is because we are suffering in this material world and we want to get out of it, and then we don't want to come back here, because the sound vibrations, the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, is the key to stopping us from being born again and again and again. So it kind of interrupts the cycle of birth, death, disease, old age. So right now I was born as a baby, then I'm kind of older, then I will suffer some kind of disease, and then I'll die. And then if I haven't chanted the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, I haven't purified myself from here, so if I haven't transcendented the modes of nature, if I haven't done any devotional service, then obviously I'm going to come back and be born again, because that will be the result of the karma for this life. So if somebody is accumulating karma of doing nonsense things, we won't go into what those nonsense things are. There's plenty, there's many. You can use your imagination or open the newspapers or switch on the TV and you'll see all kinds of nonsense activities, or simply talk to somebody who's doing some nonsense things and you will know. And what will happen for that person if he's not or she is not doing bhakti, or not chanting, or not hearing the holy names of the Lord, if they're not doing anything, they haven't taken up Krishna consciousness, they haven't taken up initiation of Diksha, or shelter from a devotee of Lord Krishna. If they haven't done that, then what happens is they will come back, be born again. And there will be another lot of material desires, another accumulated karma. It will go on and on and on, born again and again and again. The rolling never, ever, ever stops. So in order to interrupt that, in order to stop that rolling, in order to stop being born again, we chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. We take shelter of the sound vibration, which is really easy. And we stop this cycle of birth and death and old age and disease. We take our spiritual form. The result is that we don't take a material body, because we are the marginal. So we kind of fall on the spiritual side. We take a spiritual form and we enter the kingdom of Lord Krishna, which is known as Goloka Vrindavan. And from there is no returning. We take our eternal spiritual forms, our eternal spiritual bodies, and then we start associating with Krishna in our original relationship with Krishna, which has always been there. And through this chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra continuously, there will come a stage when you will begin to taste the love for Lord Krishna, and you will eventually realize the relationship you have with Krishna. So it takes a while, it takes a long, it's a journey. According to Tamal Krishna Maharaj, it takes us 15 years to establish ourselves in being a devotee. Until 15 years or 20 years, we are still a neophyte. Neophyte means early stages of being devotee. So this is after initiation, by the way. So if you haven't even reached initiation, so you can judge your level. Not that I'm trying to put anyone down, because we've all gone through gradual processes. It's perfectly normal. And then so after that, we spend 15 years of cultivating our sadhana bhakti. In other words, 16 rounds of chanting, 4 regulative principles, taking shelter of a Guru Maharaj, a spiritual master, living near the dham. If not near the dham, then obviously, oh, my phone's about to go, 5%. So you take shelter of the dham, and if you don't have the dham, then you make your home into a temple. So I'm going to stop over there, since my phone is about to die and we are over time anyway, 5 minutes over time. Thank you for listening. And so tomorrow we are going to be reading from Srimad Bhagavatam text 3.6.18, and hopefully we can conclude this chapter. And I hope you have enjoyed tonight's discussion. It was mostly technical on how Lord does his creations and the gigantic form, the senses that he develops, and what sort of demigods are associated with what kind of senses. As a result, we are able to breathe, or we are able to hear, or we are able to have this knowledge, or we are able to speak. Um, so I'll leave you there. Thank you for listening. Hare Krishna to you all, and I will see you again at 7:30 p.m. tomorrow again. Thank you very much.